So I got 3 comments right in a row asking why I didn't cover the Nova. And I'm like, did you guys even watch the video? And I went to go grab a timestamp to see where I could give you the info directly and realized apparently I cut the Nova out of the video inadvertently. So here we are. The Nova is available as a Warbond. It is another $10 discount. I suppose that's okay for this price level. And yeah, you've got a couple choices here. M50 makes the worst choice. The Hawk is probably the best choice. If you're building a CCU chain out of this, the Hawk is going to be your best choice. The Storm AA had one recently enough, but it doesn't have enough history in the CCU game for me to recommend it above the Hawk, even though both don't seem great because they're at that $100 mark. We'll see if either of them ever come back around again. However, there's an interesting thing that we can talk about here with the L21 Wolf. I think I mentioned previously that the $100 mark seems to be kind of the new barrier for giving Warbond CCUs. I don't necessarily think that any of these 3 or 4 are going to get one, but if you have an L21 Wolf token for an LTI token, this might be a better choice than trying to build a chain up to it, especially if you're new. If you're new and you happen to have grabbed an L21 previously and you don't necessarily want to keep it, even though it is a pretty awesome ship, this might be a great starting point for the new paradigm of no Warbond CCUs below $100. Depending on what you're trying to do here, if you're just trying to build the Nova into a chain and you already have the Hawk because you've been playing for a while, maybe you have a couple below the Hawk as well, or if you want to speculate with those G12s or Rangers or something else down there, I think that's about it though. Or you want to use a referral reward or a previously purchased like an AUX or maybe even the MDC as your LTI token and get a little bit of a discount from there into the Nova, or in this case, the Hawk, I suppose, you could do that. But if you don't have any of those others, you don't have any LTI tokens, you don't have any referral rewards, it's not a terrible idea to just start with the L21 Wolf and wait for that to hit a Warbond sale on the standalone ship. Again, you might be able to get a $20 discount from 0 until the $100 mark in any of these ships and for any of the CCU chains moving forward. So I'd love to be proven wrong, right? I'd love for them to start offering Warbond CCUs at the $100 or lower mark, but we haven't seen any, guys. They just haven't come up. The Nova is the lowest one of recent memory. This is the L21, just to be clear with everyone. The L22 is the new ship that just came out. It's the one that has a current Warbond in the standalone ship. The L21 Wolf does not. Having said that, there's really 2 plays here. Just go with the L21 Wolf, call it a day, and figure out how to get to the L21 Wolf and hope that the L21 Wolf actually hits the Warbond game. It may or may not. Like there's no, I'm not anticipating that it's going to hit, but if you already had it as an LTI token, like I said, it's an okay move. You're only going to get another maybe $20 discount if you're new to the game, if you build a chain off of something like the MDC, for instance. Obviously, if you're trying to use a referral reward in a permanent CCU chain, this is not the right play. Then I would recommend the Hawk. So the Hawk, L21 Wolf, and even the Storm AA is kind of a secondary CCU chain choice. But I would still lean towards the Hawk because it's had more than the Storm AA. Jumping over to the CCU game app real quick, you can see the Hawk has had 2. I think it had one prior to 2021 as well. But again, relatively rare, right? The Storm AA has only had 1 that I recall. It may have had one when it released as well. Pretty sure it did. It's just not listed here, so there's no proof of that. If someone has one that's earlier than 2024 in January, let me know, because I thought I remembered when the Storm AA specifically came out, they offered it in a Warbond CCU. It might have just been a Warbond down here, though. I could be wrong. Let me know if you guys have an earlier Storm CCU Warbond. And then we have the L21, right? L21 hasn't had a Warbond. This is actually information about, like I said, no tool is perfect. The CCU game app appears to have a $105 list price for the Wolf, but I believe this is for the Alpha Wolf that exists right now. Because you go to the Alpha Wolf L22, it has no information about its current standalone Warbond. So I think it mixed these two up on the back end, and they'll need to get that fixed. So no tool is perfect, but L21 has not had a Warbond CCU, but it might. It's a super popular ship. It may have had a standalone Warbond on release, but I wasn't really covering standalone ships on their release dates and stuff, so I might have to start doing that just so I have a record of it. Anyway, so correct me if I'm wrong. If the L21 Wolf did have a Warbond standalone price, I know it hasn't had a Warbond, I'd have one. And then, again, this could be the new LTI token, folks. Unfortunately, it is a small discount. If it ever hits the Warbond game, it'd probably be a $5 off, maybe a $10 off. That would be surprising, but it's somewhere to start if you're brand spanking new, because it does not look like we're going to get any Warbonds in between any of those other LTI tokens and the $120 mark-ish where we find the Nova today. So having said all that, again, if you're building a CCU chain from something lower than $100, the Hawk is the right choice here. Secondary choice would be the Storm. If you don't have any of the older Warbond CCUs below $100, you could start with the L21 Wolf and then hope that that hits a Warbond sale for the standalone, and then you can just pick that up for a slight discount and build into the rest of your chain. In other news, we just had a leak come out about, well, you know what this is. This is a loading screen picture of news that we've been getting every patch update, basically, right? So yeah, so-and-so dies. Yeah, there's cool weapons coming out for Luminella that they're advertising here. But right in the middle, they say FTL comms breakthrough, cutting edge discovery, inter-system comms. So we're talking about the opposite of data running, right? So with this news blurb, they've effectively said, oh, we're not going to do data running, which, I mean, let's face it, it's core to two ships. If you don't remember the second one, it's a Drake Herald. The first one that everybody generally remembers is the MSR, Mercury Star Runner. So maybe, if we're lucky, they're going to plan an event where the FTL comms fails, and you got to run data with one of two ships, and then, oh, of course, they're going to release a third ship that runs data, of course, right? So maybe look forward to that, but I don't see that happening in the next patch. So maybe this is just a prelude to what could come later in 2026 or something, where data running comes back to the game, which I think would be awesome, because then the MSR would have an actual purpose, because let's face it, it's a ship without a purpose. It's not really a cargo runner. It's not really a smuggling ship. Come on, the SCU crates don't really go down those holes with quality user experience built in. How about that? They're not big enough tunnels, right? And everybody knows about the tunnels. So come on. It's silly right now. It needs to have a purpose. And if they did something with this, even if it's not this patch, because obviously next patch, what we're anticipating is not something that they haven't talked about, which would be data running. What we're anticipating is engineering, which is this little blurb down here. Consumer special, our fuse is failing more frequently. So yeah, they probably will be, right? Right? We're going to have to be replacing fuses like crazy. We're going to have our own containers full of fuses just for every Drake ship we own. That'll be dedicated cargo space at this point. So at least we have this new leak that came out, something to look forward to for the next patch, quite frankly, hopefully coming soon to a server near you. Interesting stuff. Engineering should be fun. But other than that, I don't have anything else to talk about. I apologize for missing out on the Nova in the first video. I don't know what happened there. I basically forgot I cut it out somehow. It was completely by accident. Anyhow, that's it for me, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining me for IAE, as this will close it out completely and finally. Have a good one. Zi-Tek out.